Okay, welcome back. We've got another interview. Today we are speaking with Alex McCann of Altrincham HQ. So if you want to know what place social media has in today's self-isolating kind of environment, then obviously we're speaking to the right person. Welcome, Alex.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Ah, our pleasure, our pleasure. We've got a few questions that we want to ask you, and it's for most people, it's not quite business as usual, is it?
No, not at all. It's the strangest time. I would say in a generation, but I'll say multiple generations.
Yes, I don't think anyone has actually ever lived through something like this. World wars, yes. Haven't we just had the people who are 112 years old, a man and a woman, celebrating their birthdays? I don't think they would have actually anticipated this at all. But here we go. Right. Well, I've got loads of questions for you. So, what's changed for you as a business during COVID-19 and the UK lockdown, effectively?
Yeah, kind of everything in a nutshell. Obviously, I run a social media business, so people are sort of looking from maybe the outside and thinking, well, nothing much has changed because everyone needs social media right now because everyone's in lockdown. But it's changed massively because a lot of our clients, say, for instance, are B2C high street businesses. So we're talking bars, we're talking restaurants. And naturally, the moment, I think it was a Friday, the lockdown announcement happened, and I was actually going to one of our clients to pick a takeaway up. And it was kind of like you saw the look on the client's face and you saw the look on my face and thought, this has gone a lot more serious than just we've got to socially distance a little bit. So yeah, it kind of changed overnight from the lockdown moment, really, for me, both in terms of not being able to network, not being able to see clients. We had a lot of group training as well the week after this happened, and that all got postponed for, they said May at the time, but I suspect it will be August or September. So yeah, a lot of work lost. Some work still going on though.
Okay. Well, so what are you doing that's the same as before? Obviously, you are now in a unique position. You did a lot of bars and restaurants, as you just said. So,
Yeah.
what are you doing the same, and how have you really adapted?
Yeah, so the sort of bars, the restaurants, the B2C side is mainly on pause at the moment, but we've always worked with sort of your B2B businesses, the businesses that come to subs meetings, the sort of the accountants, the solicitors, the types of businesses that hang around LinkedIn. So we're still caring for people. We're still training. We're just training in a different way. So rather than us being face to face, we're training a lot of time, and we're spending a lot of time, like yourself, David, on Zoom. We're literally, I think, in the last 2 weeks, I think we've done 6 Zoom training sessions over Zoom, but training people on social media. So the one-to-one training is still business as usual. Like, we're still trying to help people communicate to the outside world, because I don't think it is now a time to be silent. I think you've got to keep in touch with people and show that you still care, even if you're not selling something.
Okay, so it's okay to market your business at this kind of time of lockdown, as in, should we be doing it more, about the same? How should we be changing it?
Personally, I am saying if you've got a service that can help someone, it is 100% okay to market that service or product, because if you're not marketing something that can genuinely help people in these times, you're generally being pretty selfish by not spreading the fact that you can help them. If you sort of keep silent this time, I just think it's generally selfish, but you've got to market in a different way. In a different way, in the same way.
Okay.
You've kind of got to market with empathy. You've got to market with understanding. And you've got to just overthink things a little bit more than you normally would. So obviously, we had April Fools earlier this week, and normally marketing companies would have planned something maybe 2 or 3 months ahead for that.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, I didn't see any April Fools this week.
It perhaps would have been inappropriate, I guess. So
yeah, it's just knowing the tone of voice. But I think that's always been the case: understanding your customers, knowing the right tone of voice, and communicating where you can help people. That has never changed. That's been the same since the 1920s, the 1950s, and 2020.
Okay, and So, what about someone who's not been employing social media to do anything and they've relied on face to face meetings, networking perhaps, not necessarily just uh, business to business, but business to consumer? They're relying on passing trade. So, some people haven't even adopted social media fully anyway.
Yeah, I think it's the time is definitely now is the obvious thing to say. I think it's kind of everything's a big wake up call for people at the moment. Whether it's stuff like speaking to people over Zoom is a big wake up call. It's something we could have been doing for years before now, but we've never decided to because we haven't needed to. But I think that's the case. Social media hasn't changed. Social media is neither more important nor less important. It's just people's perception of it right now. So I'm so like grateful for the fact that I've got this network online and this audience online, that when networking stopped in terms of traditional face-to-face, I could still talk to people. So if you're the sort of business person who traditionally has gone, but I only do business face-to-face, I think about it. You're not seeing these people face-to-face in the traditional terms. So
And
your
their business is going to dry up, isn't it? If that's what they try and stick to right now.
Yeah, your face-to-face is Zoom meetings and it's social media. So those traditional businesses that have maybe been around since before social media existed, that have always gone, we're doing stuff the traditional way. It's kind of, that is not the time. It's now the time to change and get training on it. Don't just sort of go on there and do missteps and mistakes and communicate in the wrong way, because that can be more damaging than just keeping silent.
Okay, so are there any winners or losers in terms of the platforms of what's working well during the UK lockdown, or are people adopting more of one platform over another?
It's interesting because I'm across all of them. So I'm sort of looking at how I'm personally changing it. I think Twitter's winning at the moment, and I think Twitter's winning for one reason. Its whole tagline has been, it's what's happening in the world now. So it's naturally a platform you'd gravitate towards to find out news updates, local updates, or so on. But then obviously I think I've seen LinkedIn get a lot busier. I'm not saying better.
I think LinkedIn, actually, even before coronavirus actually hit the headlines, I think LinkedIn has been making inroads and growing regardless.
Yes, it's been sort of taking this sort of upwards trajectory, and it's becoming faster now. More people are adopting. I'm not saying it's becoming better. I'm saying it's becoming more popular, and that's the difference. I think that's the difference between someone who understands marketing and doesn't. You can jump on something and be a busy fool. Okay. You can post updates that don't land.
Right. Have you noticed any functionality changes or updates across any of the platforms through LinkedIn perhaps or Twitter that they, over the last 2 weeks, they've launched anything to try and help in the current situation?
I don't think it's necessarily, there hasn't been that many changes over the past couple of weeks in terms of functionality that can help businesses. There's been functionalities that can help human beings, and behind every business there is a human being. So there is, like, Instagram's launched something called co-watching, which allows you to sort of share the photos that you've liked, and it turns into like a shared experience. So you can go onto Instagram and go, I've liked 10 photos, and you can choose to share which photos. You can keep the secret ones that you've liked privately.
How many of you kept secret?
Not many. I'm genuine, etc. But no, it's kind of like, I think everything's turning into shared experience, like the Zoom calls with your friends, the watching Netflix shows at the same time, the Instagram co-watching. House parties become a big thing. I've not used it yet. I get the sense that it's meant for a slightly younger demographic than myself.
So yeah, interestingly enough, house party, even Zoom bombing now is becoming a thing, and different things. They're talking a lot of how secure are these pieces of software. House party, there has been speculation that actually it's been part of a targeted campaign to slur its reputation. Zoom bombing, and they're talking about the government, Boris Johnson using Zoom, not for necessarily anything that's business critical or government critical. And it's a case of, but the tool has been fantastic. These tools are a lifeline for businesses and for families at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in terms of the way we've been using Zoom, we've been doing our meetups. I've been guest appearing on people's Zooms. I've been hosting my own. And the simple solution, if you don't want Zoom bombing, is don't put the address out there to the public. Everyone's
Yep.
been registered to events. So it's like a face-to-face event. If you know who's on the registering list, you know who's walking through the door. You can't have someone just walk through a door at a face-to-face event, generally. So it's the same on Zoom. Make people register.
Okay, well, I'll take that one stage further. When I use our Zoom accounts now, when we're doing our registration events, we're actually doing the waiting room. So actually, we admit people in as they come. So if there's anyone that you don't recognise or it looks a little bit suspect, you don't have to let everybody in. But obviously, the only trouble there is you have to keep an eye on the fact that people are waiting, and you may have already started. So yes, I've noticed that. So you mentioned there you're on a lot of Zooms for other people, doing the rounds. Obviously, you're taking the time to interview with us, so thank you very much. How many times a week are you Zooming or equivalent?
Well, I think between work and between actually training work and between networking and speaking on guest appearances, a week, I'm trying to think, this week I've been on at least 10. And it feels I'll be honest, it feels tiring. Like the idea of like not leaving your house, sat at your house, appearing on a Zoom meeting in the morning, then taking a break for lunch and jumping straight on one in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like I'm networking more, and I'm not sure whether it's entirely productive long term to keep doing this for 3 months while lockdown. I think I'm going to get back to what I used to be, and I think you've mentioned this as well, being picky and choosy and picking the right events.
Okay. Well, again, so Subs has had to reinvent itself like so many businesses out there, and we've moved our physical events to online events. And actually, even though we had one for Stockport last week, that was very much a COVID-19 update, and it wasn't run in the true sense of how we're going to be doing the online meetings. But it was a good eye-opener and getting a feel for how many people want to come along. And we're going to run the first one with Subs Wilmslow coming up. And again, I've always maintained not all networking events were created equal. And there are some people who have literally dived straight in and say, we're running a 2-hour Zoom session. For me, that's just ludicrous. It's too long. Do you have a thought process on how long a Zoom meeting should be?
Yeah, definitely. I feel the attention span in a Zoom meeting is less than face-to-face because you've not got all the different face-to-face elements. I would, whatever your normal event is face-to-face, if you've been doing it, halve it. So if it's a 2-hour meeting, pull it into an hour. I've done exactly the same. I've done several Zoom meetings where the intro rounds go on for an hour, and I'm like, by the end of it, because I'm naturally quite a smiley person, I've got that smile on my face for 2 hours, and that's tiring as well.
You get the smile ache on your face.
Yes, definitely.
It's hard work. So how many Zooms have you had today? This is my third one of the day so far, and I've only got one more. This is
my second one of the day. I will be jumping onto Skype with the parents later because I'm keeping in touch with friends and family as well. So I'm
only talking business here. So yes, by the time I've done the in-laws, my parents, all sorts of things, other family and friends, yeah, there's a lot that goes on.
Yeah, it's very tiring, as I said, and I think there is going to become in maybe a week or so's time, it's going to come back to business as normal. It's going to go into, you go to your set 2 or 3 networking events a month, and that's what's going to happen. I think that's going to be genuinely the case.
Okay, so now that people have got the time, now is the time to learn social media. So obviously, I know that you do managed accounts, you do training one-to-one and one-to-many people. Obviously, you're using Zoom. Is Zoom as effective for you to deliver that training?
Yeah, you know what? I've always had that kind of like self-doubt process, and I had the same self-doubt process years ago when I was like, is group training as effective as one-to-one? And when I started doing it, I was like, I love this thing, and it's great. And I was like, why didn't I do this years ago? And it's the same thing now with Zoom, because it's essentially the same. Everything that you can do face-to-face, you can do on Zoom. So the great thing about Zoom, for those that haven't used it or have never been on David's training, is you can share a screen on it. And I'm comparing that sharing a screen experience to my back not aching when I'm leaning over someone and showing them physically face to face. So it's exactly the same, and I'm saving my back at the same time.
Okay. So, well, I'm stood on a working standing desk at the moment. It's on my dining room. Obviously, people are working from home. We've put our magic backdrops up, so obviously it still looks that little bit more professional. But what advice would you give someone or give a business out there who can't serve customers online?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think there are businesses. I've been thinking about all the sort of physical businesses that at the moment can't serve people. So that might be hairdressers, beauticians, electricians, plumbers, painters, and decorators. And I think now, if you're that sort of business who can't do the paid work, I think it's really sort of time to start thinking about your content marketing and think, is there a way of communicating what you do and still marketing your services from your home? So that might be writing blogs, it might be doing videos, it might be starting up that podcast you've always meant to do. And I think there's so many. I mean, I saw an example of a photographer yesterday it was, and naturally they can't go out and do wedding shoots at the moment. A lot of weddings are being postponed, and they'd literally got an action man and a doll and made up a wedding in their garden and photographed every single scene of that wedding. And I thought, what genius move that was to sort of, so think outside the box, be wacky, be creative, be cheesy, or otherwise be educational and produce content.
Okay, that makes sense. So if someone is using social media for the first time, can you give 2 or 3 top tips on what not to do?
Not to do.
And I'll give one. Don't put anything down in writing that you wouldn't say to someone face to face, and know that it's out there forever and it's going to come back and bite you one day.
Very true. I've seen a few people do exactly that as well. There's been a few people that have been sort of work shaming people for actually going out there and working during this. And I think that's a really bad move at the moment, where it's like they've got the comfort blanket of a salary and they've been sort of shaming other people for going, you're promoting and marketing your business? That's a bit strange. But yeah, exactly that. That's a very good point. What I'd also say is don't go into hard sales mode or hard sell mode. There's been a lot of that on LinkedIn. I've been having lots of 5-paragraph sales pitches on my inbox over the past couple of weeks because people are like desperate for work, but they're going totally the wrong way about it. So yeah, don't put anything out there that you wouldn't be proud to say in a year's time to someone's face. Don't hard sell, and never forget the importance of actually talking to people, actually engaging with people. Engaging and chatting to people is just as important as your outbound messages. So now is very much the time to have those conversations with people and just show you care. I mean, my number of tweets have gone up by about 40%, and I was always quite prolific anyway. But I just feel I need to say you're okay to a few people when I'm sort of seeing they're down in the dumps or so on.
Okay, so what are you doing to weather the storm yourself? Obviously, you've now adapted your own business, so mentally, being in the same house and tweeting more, I can't think of anything worse, but yeah, that's why you do the social media and I don't. But is there something that you do mentally to prepare yourself to know that today is going to be pretty much the same as yesterday? I still can't really leave the house other than for my one bit of exercise. And do you find it mentally strange and stressful for yourself?
Yeah, mentally, it's really draining. I think because I'm naturally, I love the social media aspects of it, but I'm used to physically seeing people. I'm used to going out to rock and roll gigs. I'm used to going to the gym every day. So it's all the external things outside the business. I can cope with the business side of things in terms of I'll always find a way. There's always an alternative. It's the not being able to see people that's really hard. I think the thing that's really sort of changing my brain is I still love my running. I'm taking my 1 hour of exercise to the max every single day. I did a half marathon the other day before they locked you down to just 1 hour. And the half marathon was absolute bliss. Just being able to go out and run for 2 hours and totally switch off. So I would say my one piece of advice for anyone, still try and regiment your work hours. Like I'm still taking weekends as weekends and trying to totally switch off work. Do things like read books as well. So at the end of the day, I've always done this, but I'll sit down and read a book at 10 or 11 o'clock at night and try and switch off from my technology as much as possible.
Okay. Well, actually, it's interesting you said about taking your weekends. So, a colleague of mine basically wrote it to me the other day and said, "Oh, how was your weekend?" Oh, I guess they kind of just blur into the other days. Well, actually, I'm just like you. I've been working so hard to reinvent subs to make sure we can survive the next few months or weeks, however long it might be. And actually, when I, because I'm standing up at my stand-up desk and I'm loving it, by the time I get to 6, 7 o'clock in the evening and I've done everything I wanted to achieve that day, I'm ready to sit down. And on Friday night, I was so ready to switch my computer off, and I didn't switch it back on until Monday morning. And actually, I came from working at home when I set up my businesses 11 odd years ago. And after 3 years of working at home, when I finally moved to an office, I loved that switch off, that when I left the office at the end of the day, my business, I was not totally off duty because obviously I own the business, but to have that kind of now it's me time, this is work time, and that differential. And actually, a lot of people are going to be at home for the first time working that aren't used to it. And it's really hard to switch off sometimes. So, any advice for them?
Yeah, I think you keep to a schedule, set your to-do list the night before, like you normally would do mentally, at least in work, and do all the same things you would normally do. So have a shower. It's a really simple thing, but having that shower in the morning always gets you set up mentally for work. I'm not saying you have to put a shirt on like we both have, but I think, yeah, setting the to-do list, doing the 9 to 5 or whatever your traditional hours were, and then treating yourself at the night, whether it's as much as you can do. Like, I had takeaways the first weekend that all this went into lockdown. And now I'm looking at it and thinking, I can't justify delivery 3 nights every single weekend, but I'm treating myself to my non-alcoholic beers, and I'm having a curry night or a vegan fish and chip night or whatever. And I'm trying to like celebrate the small moments.
Indeed. So, what have been the casualties of obviously your Altrincham HQ? You're based in and around Altrincham. Any big casualties from the restaurants there? Because I know they're a big part of your client base.
Yeah, I mean, there's been no casualties in my clients in terms of they've closed for good. There's been obviously legally they've got to close for the 3 months or however long it's going to be. But I was due to go out on my birthday night a couple of weeks ago to Angosol, which is a Cambodian restaurant on Ashley Road, and they have closed permanently because their lease was due up. And I'm like, I'm so gutted on that. They weren't a client, they were never a client, but they had the most amazing food. And they've only got one restaurant left now, I think in Marple. So after this, I'm going to go over to Marple and support them.
I might come with you. I know you don't drive, so I'll be doing the transport, no doubt. We can give that a go. All right. Well, thank you for answering the questions. I know that I think you're doing an interview-based session with the Altrincham and Sale Chamber of Commerce next week.
Yeah, that's on the Tuesday.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm dipping into there. I'm stepping in the shoes of Graham Brady. So hopefully I'll be getting more viewers than him.
At least you're not competitive.
What's that?
I said at least you're not competitive.
No, I'm not competitive, but no, it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a good opportunity to help a more traditional business network, and it's going to get them up to speed in 2020.
Okay, so a finishing thought, a final tip to keep sane in these uncertain times?
Stay healthy, keep exercising, and keep in touch with people.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, that was Alex McCann from Altrincham HQ, pretty much a guru in everything social media. So obviously you can see by his backdrop if you need to get hold of him, it's altringhamhq.co.uk. Big thank you to you. I don't know who we'll be interviewing next, but we're going to be inviting a few guests to join us and try and post interviews once a day or a few times a week. We don't know how this is going to pan out. It's new to us as well. So thank you everyone who's watched us this far. Thank you to Alex. We'll see you all again soon.
Cheers.